Hello, hello. Yeah, 7 o'clock. I, I'll talk about that after I do the title and blurb. The visible cage made me think about the ones we don't see. Spending over an hour in a small cage was probably the worst part of my jail experience, other than the fact that I was defrauded of my rights in the first place. Realizing that each of us has unlimited potential, it breaks my heart that we live in a world where we are programmed to believe in our limitations. We are all still there to some degree, locked inside invisible cages. What will it take? What can we do to liberate ourselves and each other? Yesterday, I retrieved my automobile from impound. Cost me a good bit of money, ridiculous amount of money, considering they could have put it in the parking lot and I wouldn't have had to pay anything to get my own car back. The police apparently, when they were rifling through my car, broke the handle on my driver's door so that it cannot be opened from the outside. The handle just doesn't do anything. It doesn't release the catch. They probably just pulled on it so hard they broke the springs. All of the paperwork that was inside of my car, my UCC1 filings and other paperwork that I had in the car, including my diplomatic immunity papers from Swiss Indo, my world passport, my international driving permit, none of that was put back in the car. I did not get it. I do not have it. The ambassador did call the chief of police in Fort Pierce police department and left a message with his secretary and did get his phone number. And we did call back a second time and got left a voicemail. But the ambassador gave his credentials, stating who he was, and anyway, we'll see what happens with that whole conversation about returning my documents to me immediately. Of course, I cannot drive down there because I'm not going to drive until my license is reinstated. I took the first steps in reinstatement, paying the fine from the 2012 incident with the judge that punched out an attorney in his own courtroom, or in the courtroom. That was international media a month or two ago, a couple months ago, I guess it's been now. In any case, I paid the fine through a collection agency. It takes 2 to 3 days to process it. Then I have to go to the courthouse, pick up a paper, and I understand you have to pay for that document that says that you've made the payment. Then you take that document to the motor vehicle thing and your license is reinstated, and it's going to cost $66 and change, I believe it was, to reinstate it on top of all the other fees. So it's going to cost me, apparently, what was it? $450, over $450 to get my license reinstated, or something like that, which was actually not as much as I thought it was going to be. But in any case, to have to do it at all is ridiculous. It's another imposed limitations. Now, I do want to say one other thing. They make you sign a lot of papers when you're taken into custody. I mean, you're signing papers upon papers upon papers. Everything that I signed that was related to this incident, I signed it ARR, which means all rights reserved, and UCC 1-308, which means it's signed under duress. Anything that's signed under duress is not a contract by law. I mean, they don't see it that way. They think it's a contract. They've entrapped you, and it's all entrapment. So all of this whole thing was absolutely nonsensical. It's a way that they make money in the system. Somebody said that every time someone is arrested, 29 people make money on it. The bail bondsmen make money. The people that are in the towing companies make money. All of the arresting officers and all of the departments that are involved. I didn't read the thing to see what the departments and how many people it are. But there's so many people that enrich themselves over the tyranny of arresting people that did not commit a crime. Again, a crime has to have a victim. The state or a corporation can never be a victim. Only living human beings, only living beings can be victimized. You can't victimize a legal fiction because it's not a real thing. You can only victimize living beings. Anyway, we are all imprisoned in cages. And as I said in the blurb, the hardest part was when they had taken me out of the cell and said, you're going to be released. They put us in a cage. The cage is 2 by 3 feet floor space, no chair, nothing to sit on, nothing to relax on, and it's 8 feet tall. So it's 2 by 3 by 8, totally encaged, locked in, and I was in there for over an hour. They called my son shortly after I was put in the cage and said I'd be out in 15 minutes. It was over an hour after that I finally walked out the door. My son was sitting outside in the parking lot waiting for me. The whole ordeal, though, I mean, at that time I was exhausted standing in the cage. I hadn't eaten anything since I had been, since earlier in the evening before I was arrested. I hadn't had anything to drink since earlier in the evening. I hadn't slept at all. I had laid down, but you can't sleep when there's constantly noise and stuff like that, and also the noise and the chatter of your own mind, replaying everything and thinking about everything when you're laying there. I mean, it's for me, it was not possible to sleep. So I was already exhausted when I'm in the cage, but just the meditation and the thought, the vision of seeing myself in that cage and feeling what it felt like, being exhausted, thinking I was getting out, but at the same time waiting on someone else's timing. I mean, I said to the lady a half an hour before, I said, did they forget about me? Because the other 3 people that were ahead of me in the cages, they moved them through fairly quickly. I mean, they got one done, and then there was a man, then 2 ladies, and they moved the 2 ladies, let the 2 ladies get out of the cage together. I mean, they were each in a separate cage, but they opened both of the cages and let them out, you know, right after each other, seconds apart. Me, they kept waiting for over an hour, probably, at least 45 minutes after the last person was released. They finally came and let me out of my cage. And the outgoing process maybe took 5 to 10 minutes or so. Again, signing paperwork and changing out of the jail clothes and putting your own clothes back on, which are all wrinkled because they put them in a shrink lock bag and they were still wet with perspiration from the night before. All that perspiration locked into the clothing. But you are a slave. When you're arrested, you are a slave. And these other people who are also slaves of the system, but they just have a bigger cage. The cage is called, well, that's what's required of us. That's the rules that we have to play by. That's not the word that they used, but well, I can't do that because we have to follow our instructions. Or again, it's the rules that they're given, and it's all a cage. Everything that we do in this world as human beings, in the matrix, is a cage. It's all imprisonment. You may think that because you're free to move around that you're not in prison. But I realize we're all imprisoned. And just spending that hour plus, an hour and 15 minutes or whatever it was, in that cage, you know, made me realize how much even I'm in a cage. I'm in a cage now. I have to abide by their rules, even though I know they're unlawful. I know it's unjust. I know it's a violation of my rights, but I don't feel I have a choice. I'm still in a cage. It's a bigger cage, but it's a cage. Consider that. Consider that we're all in cages. Is this the type of world that we want to live in? We have to do something about it. We have to change the system. We have to raise our voices. We have to say no more. We have to talk to our fellow human beings who are police officers and who are attorneys and who are judges and who are people that are involved in keeping the cages restricted. The people in the matrix that go to work every day just doing their job and doing what they're told without thinking about whose rights they're challenging, and without realizing that when they're taking the rights from someone else, they're limiting their own freedom, because nobody stands alone. Nobody is an island. Everything we do affects everybody else that's around us, even if we don't know them, even if we've never talked to them or never actually encountered them in any physical form. Everybody around us is affected, even on the other side of the world, by the cages that we choose to live in. I would love to get out of my cage. I would love to break the bonds that not only have imprisoned me, but the bonds that have imprisoned my fellow brothers and sisters, the human family across this planet. I'd love to bust those bonds. I'd love to find somebody, the Dragon family, Swiss Indo, somebody that can actually fund programs to liberate humanity and do it in a quick fashion. Not protect the criminals. I still don't understand. I still don't get it why anybody that claims they want to do good for humanity continues to allow these obvious criminals to get away with their criminality, to get away with the matrix programming that continues day in and day out without pause, and more people all the time, because I think they sense that their time is up, and I think they're getting more and more desperate. So more and more people are being abused every day around the world. Not just in the United States, around the world. Yes, we live in a tyrannical system. We live in cages. We live in prisons. They are varying sizes and varying degrees of perceived freedom. But we really don't have freedom as long as the beast is in control. As long as the beast forces people into contracts under duress, with threats of violence, with threats of loss of restrictions of liberty, restrictions of freedom. Yes, it's all manipulated, it's all coerced, it's all unlawful. All of it. And every judge that sits on a bench and continues the system going is committing crimes against humanity. Every attorney that upholds the system is committing crimes against humanity. Every banker that makes a loan when it's not even a loan, when they're actually defrauding the person who thinks they're borrowing money, who thinks they're impoverished, who thinks they don't have any value or any wealth. Every one of those is committing a crime against humanity. We are all, in one way or another, we are all probably criminals, because all of us contribute to a system of cages, a system of slavery, a system that should never have been allowed and should be forced to end as quickly as we can end it. I ask whoever you are, who's ever listening, do your part, play your role, stop making excuses, especially if you have control of funding. Funding is what makes the world go round currently. I know it's not something that needs to happen once we're liberated, but until we are freed, we need to use the resources, the monetary resources that are available to liberate and break the bonds that have enslaved all of us. And we need to do it without further excuse and without making any kind. Again, excuse is the only word that's coming to mind. I'm not thinking of an alternative word. We need to break the bounds. We need to get out of the prison. That's all I'm going to share for now. Thank you for listening. Namaste.